this player has had a lot of, I guess, not the conversations that people are thinking so highly of him as a player at the moment because of the fact that he hasn't been on the field, got paid a big contract. And that's Anthony Rendon with the Angels. And Anthony Rendon was asked questions earlier. I think, Zach, you have the tweet of it right here.
I have the transcript. So this is him, I guess a reporter released the transcript if you want to.
Okay, so because I'll read it out loud because we have people, and we have this on Spotify and Apple, by the way, if you want to listen to it. If you can't watch this, go listen to it on Spotify and Apple and hit that like and subscribe button, whether you're on YouTube or you are listening via podcast. Last year, the question was, last year you said you're considering retiring. What's your mindset now? The question was addressed to Anthony Rendon. My enthusiasm has been the same since I got drafted, to be honest with you. He went through some old emails. This was in 2014. My thought process of the game has not changed since then. I keep making it this long. So he's saying that he still has the same enthusiasm, paraphrasing, as he did when he was younger. How does your pro and con list compare to 10 years ago? Because he created a list. It's a lot different. I'm married. I have 4 kids. My priorities have changed since I was in my early 20s. So definitely my perspective on baseball has been more skewed. And this is where it gets interesting, I think, where people are getting caught up with Anthony Rendon. The question was then, is it still a top priority for you? Is baseball still a top priority for you? With the answer being, it's never been a top priority for me. This is a job. I do this to make a living. My faith, my family come first before this job. So if those things come before it, I'm leaving. And then the next follow-up question, is it a priority? Oh, it's a priority for sure because it's my job. I'm here, aren't I? Do you want to be here? And this is actually my favorite part of it. Well, I don't want to talk to you guys, meaning the reporters, at 7 a.m. or whatever time it is. And do you want to be here playing baseball for the Angels was the final question, with which he answered, I have answered your question, so why do we keep picking at it? Okay, so I think where everyone gets caught up in this, because Anthony Rendon, since he signed that massive deal with the Angels, really hasn't played much. The production has not been the same, where he was one of the best hitters in the National League over that time. He has had comments in the past where people have alluded to that he just doesn't care anymore. Yeah. Now, I don't think that that's fair with him overall when you're hurt a lot, but people have an expectation. But when they've heard recently, he talked about shortening the season. Yeah. And then with this talking about that it was never a priority in his life. Hey, look, family, faith, whatever, like I'm cool with all of that. Absolutely. You have your priorities in check. I think it was the word never, Zach, where people saying it was never a priority, which sometimes to me can be a little bit puzzling.
Yeah, I think, we talked about this a little bit before the show. I don't think the part of him saying his family and faith come before a game, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think a lot of people actually would say that. It is the parts where this is a guy with history of really kind of saying he doesn't really love being a baseball player. Not that he doesn't love being a baseball player, but he's like, this is a job. This isn't my biggest passion or anything. And I think that's where it started rubbing people the wrong way, is every time it seems like Anthony Rendon is in the news recently, it's because he's suspended for getting in a fight with a fan. He then comes out and says that he wants the season be shorter so they're not playing as many games. He doesn't have to come in as much. And then you have this stuff. So I think it's more like we talked about the way he said it and who is saying it than if someone else said, hey, yeah, I mean, obviously baseball is my job, but my family and faith comes first. I don't think people would bat an eye. But then him saying, well, it's never been a priority, and well, I'm here, and getting annoyed with the reporters was where it started to go south.
Well, and here's the thing right now, and again, we're emphasizing, Brandon, you're right. He doubled down on his ethics. Nothing wrong with it. Yeah. Absolutely. There's nothing wrong with that. No. And that's what we're saying. Nothing to do with that. And sometimes this is where I think Anthony's getting a bad rep for it. It is his job, right? His career's going to end, or he's not going to try to take work home with him. No one wants to try to take their work home with them. And you want to have your life, right? That's everyone's goal. But Rock, being in those situations, it has been a lot of stressful moments that he's had with the media over the last couple of years. And I think that's the perception that people are looking at, is what the motives are. Whether that's right or not, that's kind of what's transpired with Anthony Rendon and the Angels, or at least the media members that cover him.
Some athletes, I'm sure, just absolutely hate the media side of things. Some coaches, some managers absolutely hate it. They do it because it's required. And it's without athletes speaking to reporters and members of the media can't generate that content, write stories about it, and can't basically do their jobs. I can't speak for those guys. I know when I go into a clubhouse or a locker room, I try to be as respectful as possible, but sometimes questions need to be asked. And over the years, to Anthony Rendon, questions have needed to be asked, like they have to be for like every other player. For him, I don't think anybody is knocking him, and they shouldn't be, for the ethics side of it.
Yeah.
Like what Brandon said, he doubled down on his ethics. Nothing wrong with it. I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
It's the way you kind of go about it. It just doesn't seem like you care at times.
Yeah.
That's what I think people may or may not have a problem with right there. Like, people make jokes about Nikola Jokic all the time. Like, he cares more about his horses in Serbia, like because he's got 20 horses. He was just talking about him at the All-Star games. And like, basketball is just it's a moneymaker for him. But
didn't he
just
say he
so
wanted to go
good.
back to Serbia?
What's
Or
that?
something?
Yeah.
Didn't he say he couldn't wait to go
Yeah, he
home
couldn't go
after
back.
they won
He
the
didn't
final?
wanna
He
go
said
to
he was
the parade.
homesick.
And they
He
were
was
getting,
homesick.
he was getting some,
But, like,
he was getting some slack.
That's a joke, and I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think Jokic has ever came out and said, like, I don't,
No,
view
he
this
said
as,
he loves it. But
yeah,
it's just
he loves
it's
the
just
game. He
it's
just
just
doesn't look like he's true.
Right,
Yeah, but
right.
he's so good at it.
Yeah.
With Rendon, it's like there are some things that are in his position. Some things are just better left unsaid. Like, you don't have to. You can go about it different ways. Like, say, like, there's things I care about more than baseball, and it's my religion and my family. Leave it at that.
Yeah.
And just
Yeah.
the rest can be his.
I think another thing that has to be, brought up with this is, like, I don't think this is even a conversation if this is Anthony Rendon for the Nationals, if he was putting up that type of production, but it does come with the fact that Angels fans and baseball fans have been frustrated with him the past 2 years because he's not out there. He's been dealing with injuries, and it feels like he hasn't always been trying to always get back and, compete with the Angels. And then, they're frustrated about this contract that he signed, and they're saying it's one of the worst contracts ever. And then for him to come out and say, "Hey, baseball's not even my top priority," I think that's where fans are like, "Come on, dude! Like, we already joke about that. You have a horrible contract, and now he's coming out saying, well, it's okay. Baseball's not really even my first priority." It's like, I think it's one of those things where it's like we talked about the NBA All-Star game. The fans want you to care almost more than they care.
And this is what Rocco's talking about right here.
When you're getting paid that money, it's like fans want it to be a top priority for you. It doesn't have to be one. It doesn't have to be two, but baseball needs to be in the top 3 of priorities, and you need to make it a priority if you're going out there and you're playing for a team and they're expecting you to produce. They're expecting you to win. Obviously, it's a team sport. You can't do much about that sometimes, especially the Angels, that organization. But it's like, I don't know. I just
so to give the context here real quickly, Kevin, then you can jump in. Context here, since he signed his contract with the Angels, he hasn't played in more than 58 games since he signed. And before he signed the deal, he deserved the deal, all of it.
Yep,
and
every penny.
The meme that you put up there, or Brad, whoever put it up, showing about Jokic saying, it was a meme for those that aren't watching this. It's Jokic, Nikola Jokic, the Nuggets, MVP, finals
MVP,
champion, yada yada. He says, "I hate my job" to HR. It's, "Oh, you're so sweet." Anthony Rendon says, "I hate my job." Hello, human resources. There's a problem, right? But success, people look at success.
Yep.
And that's, again, if you have success and you're playing well, they are not going to care as much about what happens. That's just the reality of it. I mean, Nick, like, you dealt with it too. Kevin, you can go next to it, but that's a part. I want to point that out. If you play well, team wins, people can look away. But as soon as things aren't going well for you specifically or the team, that's all you're going to hear about is all the negatives to it.
Right. And I think too, it's almost like the fans want to have connections with the players too. And if one of your players is saying, "Yeah, well, I'm just here and I'm showing up and it's whatever to me," that doesn't get the fans excited. I mean, it's almost like the conversation of when, and I don't like to make a big deal about it, but when players use we versus they, or like us when referring to a team, I think fans love that. And so Rendon's being like, "Oh, well, I'm just here," but I don't think it speaks to him he's not sitting up there saying, "I hate baseball and I've always hated baseball my entire life. I'm just doing this for a paycheck." He obviously he loves the game, but there are certain aspects of it that some players and fans, coaches, I think everybody has to understand that not every part of it is gonna have every player's going over the moon for everything. There are going to be some parts of it that just aren't enjoyable for some people, and that's okay.
Yeah, I mean that's the point. I mean, Nick, we know this. At the end of the day, people are happy if the team plays well, and they're going to feel good about it. But right now, like I saw a comment about if you're an Angels fan over the time, they had Ohtani, they had Trout, you had Rendon. When you look at those three guys on your team, you feel like that's a really solid core of offensive players that you have, and they never were able to put it all together, and they couldn't all stay on the field, and that's a whole other thing. But rough go for the Angels, Nick, and unfortunately, that's the way the cookie crumbles.
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, you said it. You when you play good, some things kind of get brushed under. I would think as a player when you don't play or you're injured or you're not playing well, you would keep those comments to yourself. But obviously he's frustrated, and he kind of it sounded like to me maybe he was letting some of that frustration out when he got the outlet to do that. It's not a great look for him, but at the same time, you don't get to that status and that level of how he was with the Nationals before he got to LA. You don't get there if you don't love the game and you don't care about the game. So obviously he does, and just because he says that doesn't mean. Like, I don't know anyone who's personally going to go out on the field and be like, even if they hate what they do, they're not going to go out there and purposely do bad.
Yeah.
Like, they're going to try and they're going to give they're going to do their best, just because as a man, like as a person, you want to do the best you can do. And as a man, you're super competitive and you're in that environment. Like, there's obviously a lot of benefits to doing well. So, it's not a great look for the guy, but he's maybe letting out some steam.
If Mike Trout said this, we're not even talking about it.
Yeah,
well,
not even
so
talking about
here's the thing.
And then guys, after this,
that's a great point, Nick.
Yeah,
with something like that.
I agree. But last point here, so then we can move on. Zach, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that's what makes it worse is just the timing of all this. And Sean brought up it was bad time because either immediately after or immediately before Rendon's comments broke, they also broke the news of Mike Trout was talking about, they asked him, the media, about potential trade. Hey, you're a big superstar. Doesn't look like the Angels are maybe in the, short-term success window. And Trout said no. He said, I'm loyal. I signed a contract here and I want to win a championship here. He said, I've been having conversations with the front office every day about top guys that I think we should bring in here to help us compete and help us win. And he said, I want to win a championship for Anaheim. So you have I think it's bad time because you have your star player going, the biggest contract on your team, your star player going, hey, this is my team. I want us to go out there and win. This is where I am. This is where I signed to. I want to go for it. And then you have your second highest star player who's dealing with injuries going, honestly, baseball's not even my top priority. And I think that's where it really got blown out of proportion just because of the two different dynamics coming from the teams.
Yep. And hey, unfortunately, that's what's happening out there. And if you're an Angels fan, it's been a rough go overall. But I think people do need to pump the brakes a little bit on Anthony Rendon. But on the other case, he's not maybe doing the best to help himself.